And that reminded me, yes, we can make Advaita Vedanta even more compressed. You know, all those texts into Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya, Jiva Brahmaiva Namara. Compress that further into Tattwamasi or Aham Brahmasmi. Compress that further. Just Om. We have read the Mandukya Upanishad. We know how Om contains the essence of Advaita Vedanta. Or you can make it further compressed from Om also. You can make it silence. Upanishad says, Upashantoyam Atma. This Atman is absolute peace, absolute cessation. Silence. Shankaracharya himself sings that Maunam Vyakhyana. The explanation is in silence. And this whole thing, that silence can be expanded into this vast range of texts and teaching techniques. Our masters who are present here on the stage, they are skilled. If they're just silent, it wouldn't be much of a conference. But they are very skilled in condensing the ocean into a drop and expanding the drop into the ocean. We will start with Advaita Vedanta before Shankaracharya, and revered Swami Tattwamayananda ji, the head of the Vedanta Society of Northern California from San Francisco. Maharaj is here. We invite revered Maharaj to please talk to us about Advaita Vedanta pre-Shankaracharya.
Stapakaya Chaturmasya Sarvadharmasya Avatara Varishaya Ramashnaya Te Namaha Sudismriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Yonda Pravishya Mamavachmimam Prasuttam Sanjivayadi Akhila Shakti Dharasatharana Anyam Shahasta Charanasa Muttagari Pranam Namo Bhagavate Purushaya. So the topic is Advaita before Shankaracharya. Swami Stotrapath in his introduction incidentally referred to the importance of silence as the most eloquent interpretation of commentary of Advaita. Silence, the loudest and most eloquent commentary on Advaita. The Atharva Veda, there is a mantra, Antaya Bhuvadinam Anantaya Bhava. It comes in Rig Veda, so Rig Veda is supposed to be more authentic. The language of the infinite is silence, and the language of the finite is verbosity. Now, that shows that Advaita existed right from Vedic times. The earliest and the first statement of Advaita as a philosophy, as an experience, comes in Rigveda Samhita. That's the oldest religious, spiritual document known to humanity. In the first mandala, 164th Sutta and the 46th Rud mantra, Indram Mitram Varanam Agnirahu Atho Divyasa Suparno Virutman Ekam Sa Vipra Bhutha Vadanti Akim Yamam Matarishwanamahu. This mantra is inscribed here beside its hall. The reality is one, and sages call it by different names. In 1893, when Swami Vivekananda addressed the parliamentary religion in this country, he brought Vedanta to this country. And his first yoga address, September 11, 1893, he translates, maybe Mr. quoted in Sanskrit, Ye yathama pravadyante sam thadaiva bhadyameham mamavatma anuvartanti manushya partha sarvasana. The Vedic mantra called Ekam Sat, and the Bhagavad Gita calls it Mamavatma. Whatever may be the path you are following, in your search, in your till remains to God. It all finally reaches me, the one absolute reality. So Advaita had already traveled thousands of years and have to condense the whole thing into 25 minutes. The long journey of Advaita, more than 3-4 million years old, condensed it for 25 minutes. Now, when we talk about Advaita, it is actually to not mention Shankaracharya's name. Look at this man, what he did. The most wonderful estimate of Shankaracharya's work comes in the Web of Indian Life, Sister Nivedita. She writes 2 pages and she compares Shankaracharya to the combined work of all the Christian theologians like Aquinas, Augustine, Mr. Eckhart, Everald, the poets, and then of course the builders, the founders of different monastic orders. And then she says, this is a greatness that we can only understand, that we can only understand from a distance. Now, the most profound commentaries on the Vedic literature. And you have to remember that when you talk about the 10 Upanishad commentaries of Shankaracharya, you have to remember Vedas did not have a philosophy before Shankara. How many of us we know? If you look at the hermeneutical tradition of Vedic culture, you know, Vedas did not have a philosophical system before Shankara. The Aham Brahmasmi, Tattwamasi, Prajnanam Brahma, Ayam Atma Brahma, all these Mahavakyas were interpreted by Mimamsakas in terms of rituals. That is, Dharani Sahidam Karma. Look at Aham Brahmasmi. There's the most sublime Mahavakya in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. According to Mahidara, according to pre-Shankarite interpreters of Vedas, Vedic literature, Aham means Yajamana. Who is Yajamana? Yajamana is a married man who is performing a fire sacrifice accompanied by his wife. And what is Asmi? Devata Prapti. If you perform these yajnas and yagas, you go to heaven and you become one with the different angels, Indra, Mitra, Varuna, Agni, etc. That is the meaning of Aham Brahmasmi, Mahavakya. So before Shankara, Vedic literature did not have a philosophy. Advaita ideal, Advaita experience is as old as the Vedas. But the philosophy begins with Shankaracharya. That's an important point to remember. Now there is something very interesting about this. Why Vedic literature, Vedic philosophy, especially before Shankaracharya, was interpreted in so many different diverse ways. So it has something to do with the Vedic hermeneutics, the grammatical school, the school of Vedic grammar, the Chagarayana school. It's called Nairuptika school of Vyakarana, grammar. Ved, Vaidya, Nikhandu, and followed by Nirupta, Vyasaka's Nirupta. Durgacharya in his commentary on Vyasaka's Nirupta throws some light on why and how the language of Rigveda became so irregular. So it could be interpreted in so many mind-boggling ways. For information, Madhvacharya interprets Tattwamasi as Atattwamasi. So, Swetaketo, Atma, and then Akara is added to that side. So, Atattwamasi. You are not that. Now, the reason is the ancient irregularity of Vedic grammar, Nairuptika school of grammar, were frequently distorted and misused by many commentaries. I am just giving an example. Durgacharya's commentary. Okay, before that, 2 principles of Vedic grammar. One is Sarvesham Shabdanam Dhatu Jattum Dhatunam Anegarthattum. It means every Shabda comes from a Dhatu, root. And a root Dhatu can have any number of meanings. Sarvesham Shabdanam Dhadujatvam Dhadunam Anegarthatvam cha. And then the commentary says the Sarvesham Shabdanam Prakarana Vaividyat Pravattu Vaividyat Anegarthatvam Bhavani. That means the meaning of a Vaidika Shabda, Vedic sound, depends upon the person who uses it. Vaktu Vaividyat. The other meaning is Prakarana Vaividyat, depending on the context. Pradividiyogam asya annena arthena bhavidavyam tede vaktuhu abhipraya vashat anyatvam api bhajite mantraha nagi eteshu arthasya yattavadharanam asti mahatthaki ede dusparignanasya yatha aswaroha vaisishyat ashwagat sadhudanasya bhagati. Funny joke. You know, the quality of a horse depends upon the horse rider. If the rider is blind or drunk, the best horse can only take you to your death or Kaiser hospital. So, the point is, Ashwarohana Vaiditya, the quality of a horse, usefulness or otherwise, of a horse depends upon the quality, the merit of the rider, the horse rider. Similarly, Vedic Shabdas can have any number of meanings, any number of interpretations. Now, coming to subject straight away, a few pre-Shankarite Vedic Vedantic scholars, they are Atreya, Ashmaradhya, Udalomi, Kashananjani, Kasha Krishna, Jaimini, Badari, Kashyapa, Maruji, and so on. One of the most telling examples of the evidence of pure Advaita that existed long before Shankara. It comes from in Shankaracharya's commentary Bhashya itself. In the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, to the end of the Chatusutri Bhashya, that is Samanvaya Adhikarana, Shankaracharya, he quotes 3 verses from a great pre-Shankarite interpreter. His name is Sundara. That's well known. Remember, we don't have any clear evidence as to what was the interpretation, the teachings of other pre-Shankarite Advaitins or Vedantis, not Advaitins, Vedantis, like, Brahmadatta, of course, Bhakya is there, so Bhartrihari was supposed to be an exponent of the Spoda Veda, linguistic non-dualism. So, Vakyapadya is available. But the works of Kashanjani, Atreya, Maruti, Ashmaradhya, Abdulami are not available except from Shankaracharya's commentaries and Brahma Sutra, and also from Sureshwaracharya's Bhashya, Brihadaranyaka Bhashya Vaktika. In Sundarapandya's work, it is said, it is believed, Shankaracharya just takes 3-4 verses and he puts it at the end of Sutra Bhashya, at the end of Samanvaya Adhikarana. If you look at the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, at the end of the Chatusutri commentary, very long ago, Abhi cha ahu, it is supposed to be so. It was said much earlier. The verse is Gaunamityatmano asatve putra dehadi bandhana sab brahma ahamityevam bodhe karyam katham bhavet. Then Anveshtavya atmavijnana pramatrittam atmanaha anveshtasya pramadaiva patmadoshadi varthidaha dehagam prateyo yadvat pramanatvena kalpidaha lavikam tattadevedam pramanam syat atmanisyayatini. I shall explain this because when you tell something good, a shastram, you have to write, there is a padavakya pramana. You cannot just put something from Google and then this is the way I explain. So instead of that, we have to pay tribute to our Acharya Parampara. The point is this: till you realize Agam Brahmasmi Anubhava, all Nidhivakyas and Pramana are epistemological tools, the theory of knowledge, are important. Once you realize the supreme truth, Aham Brahmasmi and Bhudi, then pramanas, Advaitins accept Pratyaksha, Anumana, Gvana, Shabda, Arthavati, Anuvalanti. 6 pramanas there. These pramanas can be got rid of, dispensed with, and also all Vidhivakyas can be dispensed with. Again, you have to remember Shankaracharya never said we should get away with all karmas. He said only Vaidya karmas should be dispensed with. Now remember, in the pre-Shankara Vedantics never gave much importance to some of the most fundamental tenets of Advaita. Sort mentioned in Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. So what's the real meaning of Mithyatvam? Or why the Jagat is Mithya? Why Brahman is only reality? The idea there is a Parimarthika Satta, Vyavaharika Satta, Pratibhasika Satta, the absolute reality, the empirical reality, and the conceptual reality. And below there is something which is absolute non-existence. This gradation of absolute reality you don't find in any of the teachings of Bhartrihari, Vakyapatiya, or in the quotations that you find in Stotrapatha and Upanishad Bhashyas, Shankara Bhashyas, from Brahmadatta and Bhakta Prapancha. So I'm going to discuss Bhakta Prapancha, is very, very important. Bhakta Prapancha stands very close to Visishtadvaita on the one hand, Advaita Vedanta. Now, coming back to the subject, in the pre-Shankarite times, perhaps the most important pre-Shankarite Vedantics who were slowly evolving towards Advaita were Brahmadatta, Bhakta Prapancha, and Mandana. According to popular tradition, from Vivarana Sampradaya, this Mandana later became Sureshana. That's why he wrote this Brihadaranya Upanishad Bhashya Vartikam. He was an old man. He was the one, Mandana was a Mimamsaka, a disciple of Kumarila Bhatta, and had a long discussion with Shankaracharya Mahishmati and became a monk. So this Mandana wrote Brahma Siddhi. In that book, he talks about what we call a kind of relativistic Advaita. You may also call it relativistic Mimamsa or relativistic Nishtadvaita. So he says, you may attain some kind of absolute reality, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, but even after that, you have to continue your rituals, puja, and you can continue to be priest. And you should continue your regular rituals and activities. There is no question of going beyond Laukika karmas. That was the view of Mandana. And incidentally, that was also the view of another great, the relativistic Advaita is called the Jnana Karma Samuchaya. In Shankaracharya's works, you find, once you realize Aham Brahmasmi experience, you transcend karma, you don't reject karma. That's very important. So now Ayudhyam, Kintu Adidatvam, this again stated by Madhusudana, who actually did a great service to Advaita tradition by bringing back the devotional element of Shankara's commentary. So we came much later on a few words about that. Recently, we had a lot of discussions about Shankaracharya and Bhakti Advaita. So interestingly, the first statement in Vedantic literature that emphasizes the unity and oneness of Bhakti and Jnana, it comes from Shankara Bhashya in the Gita. Maicarinya Yogena Bhakti Abhibhajarini Vivikta Desha Anarjit Janasam means Abhivijarani Bhakti. And Bhashyagara goes on commentary. Vibhijarana Shila, Vibhijarani, Nirmala, Suddha, Satya Jnanam. The highest bhakti is highest jnanam also. Now, this is the importance of bhakti that you find in Shankaracharya's 91 Bhakti Stotras, 41 Prakarana Granthas, and innumerable stotras, according to some in Sanskrit Pandits. If Shankaracharya had not written Bhashyas, he would have become a much greater poet than Kalidas. Because, if I said something very interesting, I was in training center, so the Shankaracharya, it was a very wonderful place in Belur. I enjoyed my stay in Belur, teaching the Shastras. In the morning, a brahmachari was finally overfed kind of brahmachari. He was singing this Bhavanishtam, Gadistum Tomega Bhavan. And the brahmachari, after 2 days during one of the classes, asked me, "So Maharaj, why did Shankaracharya totally ignore bhakti?" Then I asked him, "See, 2 days ago you were reciting Bhavanishtakam. You know what I mean? Or mother, you are the only refuge. You know who wrote this? Shankaracharya." And as for Ramanuja, incidentally, something very important. See, Ramanuja was studying Advaita under Yadava Prakasha. Yadava Prakasha's Advaita were very similar to Todapuri's Advaita. You know, Todapuri made fun of Sri Ramakrishna when he was, clapping the hands and doing, he said, "You are making chapatis." But actually, Shankaracharya was making chapatis all his life. 32 years, 93 devotional poetic words. And if you just, even if you ask Yashadman is singing, you will go to Samadhi. I mean, that's the spiritual power of those stotras. Ramanuja, studying Advaita under Yadav Prakasha, could have easily gone to Kanchipuram temple. And there you find in Kanchi Kamakshi temple, they were reciting Saudari Lahiri, just written. Or Madhvacharya, who was studying Vimuktatman's Ishtasiddhi from Srinivasa Bhatta, he got upset. Ramanuja was studying Chandogya Upanishad, Yadav Prakasha. Yadav Prakasha is not authentic Advaita. It doesn't really represent Shankara Advaita. Totarapuri can example. Totarapuri made fun of Sri Ramakrishna. Do you think Shankaracharya would have made fun of Sri Ramakrishna? And this Shankaracharya was writing Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam. And do you think he would have made fun of Sri Ramakrishna? So, what I mean to say, Shankara's original Advaita, it contains all the sublime aspects of bhakti, jnana, karma, everything. Now, this is a very important point. Second point is, of course, there is another far greater name, Bhartrihari. Bhartrihari is important because his Vakyapadiyam is very much available today. He actually was an exponent of a kind of Advaita that may be called, as I mentioned, dualistic, linguistic non-dualism, Stotrapath, it is called. In that very statement, Bhartrihari says, when you utter a name, a word, a symbol, the Parapasindi Madhyama Vaikhari, this analysis is called in Mantra Shastra, is originally coming from Bhartrihari. Now, Bhartrihari says, when you utter a mantra or a sound, it is one unified entity. But when people perceive it with different samskaras and entities, they assume different names. Another very important name, as I mentioned, is Bhartu Prapancha. Bhartu Prapancha is very, very important when you study Pre-Shankaracharya, because Sri Shankaracharya, he refutes Bhartu Prapancha's jnana, karma, samuchayavada. It's kind of prasankhya, prasankhya school of Advaita, very similar to that. That means even after getting highest Advaita Anubhuti experience, you should continue your regular activities. That you find in one of the statements coming from Shankara Bhashya, Remember, Bhakta Prapancha's original work is not available. But Shankaracharya, in his commentary on Arambhanadhikaranam, Tat Ananyatvam Arambhana Sabdadibhyam. This is the Sutra 14th in the Arambhanadhikaranam. In that commentary, Bhakta Prapancha's views are condensed in a single paragraph by Shankara. And he says, Nanu anegatvam nanu anegatmagam brahma yada vrukshah aneka shakha evam aneka shakti pravitiyuktam brahma ada egatvam nanatvam cha ubhayam api satyameva. So he's like a tree. He goes to explain. A tree, whether it's a branch, it's a tree, a leaf is a tree, a trunk is a tree, and a root also is a tree. So he says, Eka Shakha evam aneka shakti pravitiyuktam brahma ada egatvam nanatvam cha ubhayam api satyameva. One unity, oneness, as well as diversity, plurality, both are equally correct. That is, again, don't mistake this. Don't think that this is like Sri Ramakrishna's idea of, Sri Ramakrishna first asked Yam the question, whether you believe in God with form or without form. Should not be mixed up. Because in Bhakta Prapancha's view, plurality and one, they are the same, at the same time they are mutually contradictory. So contradiction, similarity and dissimilarity are both proposed by, expounded by Bhakta Prapancha. And he says, Yathacha samudratmana eguttum phena taranga dhyatmana nanatvam. Ocean is one, but drops of water, waves and tsunami, whatever may be. So if they are different, but all same ocean is same. In the Dridrishya Viveka, Srishti Nama Brahma Rupe Sachidananda Vastuni Abdo Fena Ivat Nama Rupa Prasarana. That's an important statement in this Dridrishya Viveka. So when you look at the ocean and you look at the waves, you can understand the waves cannot exist independent of the ocean. Ocean can exist independently of the wave. That's not his view, this Bhakta Prapancha's view. So what it means is, he believed in a kind of permanent Bheda, Abheda. Abheda is correct, Bheda is correct. And they remain like this in a dissimilar position. That is his view. And he continues this. Tatra egamsena jnana moksha vyavahara seichidi nana drijena karma kandasayo laukika vaidika vyavaharo seichidi. This means, even after you reach the highest spiritual experience, you have to continue all your laukika vyavaharas. All activities should continue. So, Bhakta Prapancha's view was strongly refuted by Shankaracharya in his Bhashya and also by Sureshwara in his Bhashya article. But his view was this: he was a believer in Parinamavada and not Vivarta. Shankaracharya believed in Vivarta. Vivarta means Brahman appears to have become this world, but has not become the world. Parinama or transformational change is real according to Ramanuja, according to Sankhya Yoga, and according to Bhakta Prapancha, Brahmadatta, and all these teachers. But according to Advaitins, it is only apparent. Parinama is only Vivarta. Vivarta means it has not really undergone a change. It has apparently has undergone a change. There is a fundamental difference. In other words, you can find a slow evolution and progression towards Advaita, but one fundamental problem was all pre-Shankara Vedantins, they are very emphatic about continuing all Laugika karmas, Vaidya karmas, and also they look at this world as real. The concept of Mithyatvam, Maya, Avidya, these ideas don't find any place in the teachings of pre-Shankara Vedanta. This is slow evolution, but very, very slow. So I have just tried to give a small little the explanation. And with this, I shall, so another subject will conclude. Then you can have interaction. One important point of difference between non-Advaitic pre-Shankarite Vedantis and Advaitic pre-Shankarite Vedantis like the authors of Yoga Vasishtha or the great Gaudapada. That one major difference is this. According to pre-Shankarite Vedantis who did not accept Advaita in totality, there is parinama, real change. The absolute reality becomes this world. It is like the curd becoming, the milk becoming the curd, or the oil seed becoming oil. Oil cannot go back to its previous form. It cannot go back to the oil seed form. Again, a curd, yogurt cannot go back to milk. But Shankaracharya says, the absolute reality appears to have become this world, just like threads appear to become a cloth. If you look at the cloth, and if you know what it is made from, you understand it's only threads. Again, if you look at a pot maker may judge the quantity of a pot only on the basis of the quality of the soil from which it is made. So there is a gradual evolution, but as I mentioned earlier, the concepts of some of the key tenets of Advaita, like for example, Brahman is absolute reality, the Paramarthya Satta, and this world is Vyavaharika, and as we transcend Pratibhasika, you realize Vyavaharika. When you realize the Vyavaharika is only empirical, you transcend Vyavaharika, you realize Paramarthika. When you attain Paramarthika level, Vyavaharika is left behind. When you realize Vyavaharika, Pratibhasika is left behind. So this evolution you don't find in pre-Shankarite Vedantis, and that continues by Shankaracharya. Remember, Shankaracharya was not the maker, the inventor, the discoverer of Advaita. He was only systemizer, exponent. He put all these teachings together from different scriptures, and then he made it a single compact system with its own metaphysics and epistemology. That is a great achievement of Shankaracharya. So during interaction, you are most welcome to ask questions. I shall try to explain the best of my. Thank you. My pranam.